Please pray with me. Lord, take me where you want me to go. Let me meet who you want me to meet. Tell me what you want me to say, and please keep me out of your way. Amen. Please be seated. Fear not, I can speak over any little voices or squirms, I promise you. I love all the sounds in here. It's a church alive. In the last few weeks, several of our readings have centered around John the Baptist and his role in Jesus, and today is no different. We've been hearing about him in the Gospel of Luke, but now we get to hear him from a different source, the Gospel of John. And I'd like to share just a bit about the origins of John's Gospel. First, it's not to be confused in any way, shape, or form with John the Baptist, for the Gospel is not named for him. And while it has been attributed to one of the original disciples, specifically John, the son of Zebedee, the Gospel never itself says who wrote it. Scholars consider it anonymous, just like the other three Gospels. But it's really not important who wrote it. And just why is that? Instead, you see, of being the work of just one author, the Gospel of John is seen as representing the work of the early Christ community together. I stress this because the New Testament, you see, is not an individualistic document, but the church's book, written, preserved, translated, and interpreted within a community of faith. And the Gospel of John came along to offer a theological interpretation of the Christ event. John is unique in that sense. John, you see, is telling us the why the ministry of Jesus was so important. And the main purpose for John seems to be interpretation. By the time this gospel was written, and by the way, it was the last one to be written, the majority of the followers of Jesus were now Gentiles. They did not have the Jewish history that followers reading the earlier Gospels would have had. For me, this makes John so relevant because the majority of us do not have a Jewish perspective. Like those early Gentile believers, we too attempt to interpret a faith conceived in biblical and Jewish terms to a secularized world. The Gospel of John provides a biblical model for the mission of the church in every generation so it can interpret its faith anew. John reflects... I'm being so serious here with this sermon. Oh my goodness. All right, back into it. John reflects the situation of a Christian community sometime later in the early community's life, at a time when the parting of the ways between the Jews and the Christians had become clear and honestly quite painful. We can understand that painful parting between Christians and Jews of old even today. We hear the echoes of it when we look at the acrimonious tearing apart between conservative interpreters of the Bible and those who follow what's known as the critical thinking method of Bible interpretation, especially when it came to the ordination of women and gays and lesbians in our own denomination. Or look at the wrenching that is happening within groups of Christians as some align themselves closely with politicians that others find not to be models of the Christian faith. Some find their alliance hard to reconcile with their faith. And John is important in that it shares info not found anywhere else in the Gospels. It is important to note that it is from John's gospel that we get the details that let us know that Christ's ministry on earth lasted for 3 years, for example. The other gospels all limit it to just one. And here, in today's reading, We have John the Baptist, who very much had his own disciples, his own followers, ready to die for him, actually. There was much confusion around him. People were watching for a Messiah, and many thought that John the Baptist was it. But John had no problem letting people know that someone else greater than he was coming. John wasn't the light, but he reflected the light, and he led people to Jesus. And in John, there's a lot of language about the Word. Y'all know how I love to dig into the meaning and interpretation of words. I did so Christmas Eve, most recently, concerning the word "in" used to describe the place that had no space for the Holy Family. Well, the Greek word for word is logos, and it has many meanings: speech, discourse, language, thought, reason, message, account, document, and book, just to name a few. Logos was a term used by theologians and philosophers, both Greek and Hebrew. In Hebrew, the word was an agent of creation, the source of God's message to his people through the prophets. In Greek philosophy, the Word was the divine essence that held all things together, God's ideal pattern for creation. I love that. God's ideal pattern for creation, the essence that holds and binds all things together. Not just external things, but even our own selves. John's usage of the word also shows clearly that he is speaking of Jesus as a human being, but at the same time as the creator of the universe, the ultimate revelation of God, the living picture of God's holiness, if you will. In sending Jesus to earth, God was not just doing something new, he was revealing something about himself to us. John is trying so hard to interpret for us the history of the other three Gospels and of the life of Jesus. And in the coming weeks, there will be opportunities to explore this some more. There are many fascinating stories about Jesus to come. And in the meantime, I want you to remember what I said about John the Baptist's role to reflect the light of Jesus and point the way to him. I'll repeat that one more time. I want you to remember what I said about his role. His job was to reflect the light of Jesus and point the way to him. And if you think about that, isn't that our role as well? John the Baptist points you and I to Jesus. And in doing so, he sets a wonderful example of what we are supposed to be doing. Pointing people in our lives to Jesus. Ponder this, if you will. Just how can you be like John the Baptist to your friends and your family? Merry Christmas, everyone. Amen.